And it was in junior high, and I was in a very dark place. I was, kind of mixed up with some rough people and smoking a lot of weed, and pretty in a just an unhappy place. And it was my mother actually who was like recognized that this was going nowhere fast, and she sort of forced me to audition for a play, and I got the role, and it changed my life. I mean, I was like, oh, theater, this is great. I love doing this. So I just sort of launched into that. And then in college, I took a film class. I was like, I don't want to be an actor. I want to be a filmmaker. So, but yeah, it was, I don't know, just the magic of theater, I guess.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Kingdom of Dreams podcast, The Making of Stories. I'm your host, Joad Mir. Today, I have Fax Bahr, the director of Hearts of Darkness, which is a documentary based on Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. I had last week the three editors from the film, Shauna, Michael, and Jay, who talked about the post-production side of things. But today, I have director Fax Bahr, who will talk about more from the directing standpoint and working with Eleanor Coppola and all the other tidbits that went through making into this wonderful documentary. The film is already out. It's playing in theaters, at selected theaters. You can go to rialtopictures.com and check out if it's showing in your city, at what time. I think it also comes out in streaming on July 28th. So without further ado, here's my conversation with director Fax Bahr. First of all, appreciating all the work that you've done on that documentary. I know it's been a long time, but it still lives. And to kind of kick things off, how did you get involved on this project? How did you come on board?
Well, it was really through George Zaloom, who I was working for him doing electronic press kits. They had a contract with Amblin, and we were doing electronic press kits for a lot of Hollywood stuff that was coming out. And George had recently read Eleanor Coppola's notes. And he said, man, she talks about all this documentary footage. Have you ever heard of a film that's come out about the making of Apocalypse? I said, no. And he goes, I'm going to call Zoetrope. So he called up, and they were very accommodating. They were like, yeah, sure, come on up. Let's talk about it. The footage is just sitting around. And we went up and had a meeting and said, this is one of our favorite films and we'd love to do something. And they were happy to show us some footage, and it was just gold what Ellie had shot. As soon as we sat down and saw it, we knew that there was a great documentary here. So I cut like a 10-minute reel, and I wrote up a proposal, and we took it around town and sold it to Showtime, actually.
Incredible. And at that time, I mean, I know things are different now. I'm just kind of speaking from a standpoint of how you approach studios or production companies. You have to have an agent now and all that stuff. Was it similar back then, or was it something because you had already known people in the industry that was a little bit easier?
Gosh, I had an agent at the time, but I think because it was a Zoetrope project, we pretty much got any meeting that we wanted. What was surprising was the studios were pretty reluctant to do it. Like, we went to Paramount, we went to Warner Brothers, a few other studios, and they were like, well, the film is old, it's 10 years old, who's going to care about it? And it really wasn't until we lit the fire at Showtime that they were very enthusiastic about pursuing it. But, as far as I recall, we just knocked on doors, and people were happy to hear about it.
Lovely. And obviously, there's all this footage that Eleanor shot, and there was those audio recordings that Francis had, or Eleanor recorded without Francis knowing. But you obviously had to do now interviews, which was like 10 years down the pipeline of the film production. What was the process of that? Were you and Eleanor and George directly involved with all those interviews, or was it sort of breaking apart between the three of you? If you can talk about the process of that.
Sure. I mean, I reached out to everybody that was involved in the original production, and people were so eager to talk about this film. Nobody said no except Harvey Keitel and Brando. Everybody wanted to talk about it because I think it was pretty. I think it was cathartic to talk about it. I think it was pretty challenging experience. Everyone had a little bit of PTSD after the 3 years it took to make that movie. And so, yeah, people were quite eager. Nobody was reluctant to talk.
That's and what was the reason? I mean, I can guess Marlon Brando's reason because of the way he was. Harvey Keitel, I thought he was very sort of more upcoming at the time. Did he explain to you the reason behind it, or was it just like a flat out no?
Well, I think, thought about it for a while, and eventually I sent the cut to him. We didn't have a release for him. He was one of the few people that we didn't have a release for. And, we wanted to use some of the scenes because it was part of the story, some of the scenes that he was in the film, and some of the behind the scenes stuff that Ellie shot. And I sent him the cut actually after the negative was cut. Like he'd said, I'll look at it, I'll look at it, I'll look at it, let's talk. But he just kept delaying. And the negative was cut on the film. And he finally looked at like a VHS video copy of the cut, and he was like, "No, I'm not doing it." So we had to go back and recut the negative, and I think it was just it was like painful for him, painful experience. I don't know how it ever resolved with he and Francis, but I'm sure it was he just wasn't really happy about talking about what had happened.
Right. I was just thinking in my head, like, I don't know if I feel things are different now. Like, if I was to go to someone and say, we want you in the film, and we did the interview, but they didn't do a release form, to go through all that editing, only to find out later that that's not going to happen, then you have to recut everything. Do you think that would happen now? I don't think so, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I think because we didn't have a release for him, we needed his permission,
Right.
and I don't know. It just sort of depends on the individual. Harvey Keitel is a brilliant actor, and he's had a great career. I just think this was one of those things that was, a really unhappy experience for him, and so. I don't know. I suppose it probably would happen again if something similar had happened. I mean, yeah, you probably don't want to talk about,
Yeah,
I
no,
was
I'm
released
just
from a film.
curious. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Harvey Keitel obviously around that time went on to sort of launching Quentin Tarantino with Reservoir Dogs, right? He was the one who sort of backed it up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen. I mean, we may have, but who knows, right? So the fact that he did that, that's really remarkable on his part.
Yeah. Yeah. What a
Uh,
career. I mean, what an amazing actor he is.
he is. One of my favorite film of his is Monkey Trouble. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No, I
Uh,
haven't seen that. Oh, I got to
it
check that out. Monkey
it's
Trouble.
it's a kids movie. It was in the mid
Uh-huh.
90s. It was a very
Okay.
sort of um, small budget film, but it was really well done.
Hmm.
Going back to your career facts, there's always something that sparks people to do what they want to do in life, whether it's an author, whether it's an engineer, a director, editor. Do you remember that moment that did that, and how was your journey from that point on leading up to Hearts of Darkness?
Sure. I mean, it really I started acting, and it was in junior high, and I was in a very dark place. I was, kind of mixed up with some rough people, and smoking a lot of weed, and pretty in a just an unhappy place. And it was my mother actually who was like recognized that this was going nowhere fast, and she sort of forced me to audition for a play, and I got the role, and it changed my life. I mean, I was like, oh, theater, this is great. I love doing this. So I just sort of launched into that. And then in college, I took a film class. I was like, I don't want to be an actor. I want to be a filmmaker. So, but yeah, it was, I don't know, just the magic of theater, I guess.
And when you decided to become a filmmaker, all the way from that point on to production of, the interviews of this film, what was the struggle like, in trying to get work?
Man, it's a difficult road for anybody. But I would say the thing that I just was persistent. I just kept trying. I mean, I wrote a ton of scripts and they were terrible and nobody wanted to read them. But if you just keep going, you, you learn and you get a little better, and eventually somebody will like what you do, and then you kind of take that and move it into something else. And so, yeah, I would say persistence.
I'll come to Hearts of Darkness in a second. I'm just trying to get to if you feel comfortable sharing this, a moment that you remember in your struggle where you felt like, I feel like I've done it all, it's not working, and then something happened that gave you a sign to keep going. I know it's been a long time, but just thought maybe I should ask.
Yeah. Well, when I first came to New York out of college, I'd done some short films, and I thought, oh man, I'm a great director. And
We
you
all think
get
that.
there, yeah. And I got to New York, and I had like $500 in my pocket, and start knocking on doors, and nobody's interested in anything you've done. And I think I eventually got a job as for like a $135 a week. It was like boxing commercials off of like 2-inch tape. I was basically an assembly line worker, just and it was fairly discouraging. But I mean, I didn't feel all was lost. I guess I just kept kind of. I had some friends there, and we just started screwing around with video cameras and making shorts, and eventually got a job as an assistant editor in a documentary company, and then I felt like, okay, well, the path is set here.
Lovely. Um, you met Eleanor, of course, I'm assuming.
I did, yes.
What was working with her like, and also George?
Eleanor was lovely. She was a very gentle person. At least my experience with her was, and both she and Francis were very. I think the whole vibe of Zoetrope was we're pro filmmaker, so they were never like you have to do this, you can't do that. I mean, they read the proposal that I wrote, and I think they liked it, and they said, okay, we'll be hands off. They gave notes, of course, sent cuts all the time, and there were some things that we were not allowed to put in the film. But overall, I think they were pleased with how it came out, and Ellie was she was very accommodating. She gave great notes, and she was I think she was happy that the footage that she had was being put together.
And I think you can see that in the film, to be able to document all that and people in their vulnerable state, the person on the other side of the camera has to be someone that they feel comfortable with. All right, so they have to be caring, or at least pretend to be caring, but I think it comes across people figure it out very quickly if you're genuine or not. But that's the key. I think that's why one of the reasons the film worked with that footage is because the comfort level everybody had with Eleanor.
Yeah, yeah, oh, absolutely. And I think this is true of all, documentary experiences, certainly on set, that after a while, like at first it's like, oh, there's a camera there and people are aware of it.
Yeah.
And after a while, it just becomes part of what's going on and you completely let down your guard. As Frances did, recording when Elliot late at night would set out the tape recorder and he would just rant and rave. And I think so people it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
And she was there every day. I mean, she shot 80 hours of 16 millimeter footage on the set. And after she did a ton of stuff post production as well. So there was a lot of material and a lot of she was just a constant.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I will tell you, like, one of the reasons I've always been into like films, never thought to be making documentaries, but after I made my first documentary, I saw Hearts of Darkness, and I realized how easy my film was compared to what how that was made.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and she was just remarkably I think the great thing about her footage was she was such a wonderful observer. She didn't really insert herself in any way. She was just the camera, just observing what was happening. And of course, it was extraordinary stuff. But she's just an excellent filmmaker in that regard, especially for documentary. You don't want to intrude.
No,
You want to be the fly on the wall, and she was.
I'd like to call it being invisible. You just have to be completely invisible on the
Yeah,
set.
yeah.
Was there ever a thought, or was it even done? Any actual interviews with Eleanor? Like, was there an angle of like, how did she direct this film, or was it just never on the table?
No, I did. I did an interview with Ellie, and it's in the film
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, I mean, I think we talked over a whole range of issues and how it all came to be, and she was she was an excellent interview. She's very open and honest, and I mean, you read it in notes too. She just tells it like it is. She's not hiding anything. She talked about very personal stuff, and it's interesting. Only in film do you become kind of every film that you're on, you become close with all the people around you, and as soon as it's over, it's like
You're
you just
gone.
don't have real contact with them unless there's another project that you. And the same was true with Ellie, and especially with Ellie and Francis. I was privy to some very intimate. This was a really cataclysmic experience for everybody and for them. And I was right. Ellie put me right in the middle of it all with that footage and listening to everything, and then talking with them, and and so I felt sort of in a weird way close to them without being close to them because I didn't really know them. But and then the film came out, and then it's just like moving on. And I didn't, have a lot of contact with Ellie after that.
I'm glad you brought that up. So it's something I think about all the time too. Like, when you work on a project, everybody's so close, and then you're like, okay, you don't even know the person for such a long time. And then Kevin Bacon, I think he was on the Howard Stern show, and he said the same thing, and he had a difficult time dealing with it. And at that time when that happened, I mean, obviously this was a long ago, like, was there any kind of odd feelings that why is it this way? Like, why are we not in touch?
Uh, well, no, not so much because you just move on to another production, and there's a whole new family that you're involved with, and I got pretty involved in sketch comedy and in television, and which is such a it's a very difficult form of production because everything is brand new every week, and so I was like buried with that. So you move on to another project, basically just consumes all of your
I
consciousness.
guess, yeah. Would you classify some of the time that you spent on Hearts of Darkness to be some of your best memories?
Oh yeah, it was a fantastic experience. Yeah, because well, just the footage was so compelling, and the stories were so um, you know, people really went through a lot of life-changing experiences there. So it was just fascinating to be part of it and to explore it.
Was it life-changing for you? If so, what did you learn about yourself that you didn't know?
That's a great question. Well, I sort of learned uh, let's see, what did I learn from that experience? I mean, it was an incredibly busy time in my life. Halfway through cutting the film, I got a job on a television show called In Living Color, which was like a hip hop sketch comedy show. So I would do meet Michael Greer in the editing room early in the morning and sort of be have my head in Vietnam and Hearts of Darkness and Apocalypse Now, and then I would go and like write Homie the Clown sketches and Fire Marshal Bill sketches. It was this very sort of schizophrenic experience, and it was, and I was getting married at the time, and it was was a very, very, I was sleeping maybe 3, 4 hours a night and working the rest of the time. So I guess I learned you probably shouldn't take on so much, so much at the same time.
But it may have kept you sane, right? In the
Yeah,
morning.
maybe. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sort of both sides, the duality of consciousness or something.
And it's interesting you say that because nowadays, forget two, you have to be working on so many different things.
Yeah,
You know, whether one is in development, one is in pre-production and production and
yeah,
post-production, not necessarily all from beginning to end, but at different stages, right? The overlap happens.
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's true. Yeah, I mean, it's not, just the way this business works is you have to have many irons in the fire, and sometimes they all sort of land, and then you gotta deal with it.
100%, 100%. You talked about you were doing press kits for Amlin. Tell me about that. I have a reason for asking that because actually, I'll let you tell me first, and then I'll tell you the reason for asking that.
Yeah, well, Zaloom Mayfield, ZM Productions, brought me on. They really liked a short film I'd done in college called Nuclear Beach Party. They thought it was very funny, and
Yep.
so they said, "Oh, this guy can, this guy. Let's bring him on to do some of these EPKs." And so, God, we did EPKs for Universal. They were always on set with Steven. And one really fun project that they brought me was it was Spielberg's 40th birthday, and Frank Marshall and Kathy Kennedy wanted a short film for Stevens for the party to surprise him with, and so I came on and shot this spoof of Citizen Kane that was sort of all about discovering what the real Steven Spielberg was about, and we had Dan Aykroyd and John Candy as these reporters, these sort of 40s reporters or 30s reporters. And that was a blast. I mean, we just were able to get into Amblin and shoot interviews with all these people, and
Oh, wow.
Robin Williams and Barbara Streisand. Everybody, of course, wanted to weigh in on Stephen's 40th. So that was really the one of the highlights. That and Hearts were the highlights of working with George and Les.
Incredible. So this would be 1987 or 88, around that time.
Yeah, I think it was 88.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Before Jurassic Park, Hook, and I think around the time when Always came out. Yeah, no, the reason I asked was because I was very connected with DreamWorks Studio when it
Oh,
started because I
ah,
had this all this stuff that you see, majority was from that time. Um,
okay, yeah.
so I had a very good connection with DreamWorks for 10 years where I was just going to
Yeah.
the website and I knew about press kits and all that stuff. So that's why I asked. I used to get those 35 millimeter negatives for
Yeah.
scanning purposes. Still have them. I still have all of them.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
but yeah. Um, what's up for you now in future? What are you working on?
Well, right now I'm just finishing. I just picture locked on a documentary, a feature doc, that's about it's a portrait of an activist on the Texas Gulf Coast who's been fighting these petrochemical companies that she's a shrimp boat captain, and the bays that her family's been fishing for 4 generations have been decimated by all this toxic pollution. So it's an an environmental justice doc, and she's fought these people, high school education, 5 kids, lives on, $600 a month, and she won the largest Clean Water Act lawsuit in the history the history of American law, just by sheer persistence in her personality.
That's
So it's a
wow.
portrait of this extraordinary person, and not unlike Francis, in this kind of titanic struggle to overcome outrageous odds, and she does.
Kind of like sounds like Aaron Brockovich.
Yeah, it's sort of Brockovichian for sure.
Yeah. And when is this supposed to come out later at the festival run this fall?
Yeah, I'm out to festivals now. We'll see where we get in, and yeah, and then
What's it called?
it's called Hellcat.
Hellcat. And how long did it take you to make it in terms of production and access and following?
5 years.
So that was the only
Been
project you were working on?
No, no, no. I have other things that I'm working on
I
also.
know,
Right.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, yeah.
That's incredible. That sounds very exciting. I would love to see that when that comes out because it's something similar type of work that I do in terms of, just standing against all the odds, and it sounds very, very cool, kind of David versus Goliath story.
Yeah, that's what it is. I'll send you the trailer.
Oh,
Love
that'd
to
be
get your
awesome.
feedback on it.
I'd love to check that out. Just kind of wrapping up on Hearts of Darkness. Um, I mean, you obviously loved Apocalypse Now. That's why you made Hearts of Darkness. And plus, obviously, a working opportunity. It's been what, 45 years now almost, right? 44, 45 years. What do you think, based on your own experiences and other people that have come and told you, what do you think Apocalypse Now has done to cinema, and what do you think Hearts of Darkness have done to documentary cinema, based on people that may have come to you and said that's one of the greatest documentaries I've ever seen?
Um, well, I mean, Apocalypse Now is one of the greatest war films ever made. Uh, and Francis really took such a such a deep took it into such a deep level in terms of why so many war films are just about the excitement of the war,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he really found sort of the and along with Joseph Conrad, using the Joseph Conrad that extraordinary book to what the nature of humanity is. Yeah, I mean it's a film that I loved when I saw it and loved even more after I'd worked on the documentary. People really do. I think the documentary does stand up very well, and I think it is a great companion to the film. That it's great to see Apocalypse Now; it stands on its own. But if you see the documentary, you understand it on a different level, and I've always felt like that's a real compliment to the film that we made.
Has there been any times when somebody's actually come up to you or emailed you or, sort of giving their thought on the documentary or thanking you for the work that you guys have done? Kind of like a fan
Sure,
moment?
absolutely. People are always very complimentary and thrilled that the film is done and said it's one of my favorite documentaries about the making of film. People say that often, and yeah, I'm just very proud and pleased that it's getting re-released too. And by the way, James McCoskey and the folks at Zoetrope did a fabulous job with
4K?
the 4K. I mean, it's gorgeous because Ellie shot it on negative, like 16 millimeter negative. And I think at the time when we brought it out, it was like we just did. I don't think they spent a lot of time coloring the film, and it was from so many different sources. I shot 16, and there were so many different camera people on it, and so they really dove back into that footage. So it's a new experience. It's just gorgeous to see it.
I'm looking forward to that. You shot in digital Bolex, 16 millimeter? Sorry, not digital Bolex, 16 millimeter.
I think we used Aries, I think.
Aries, okay, okay. And I think the 4K version comes on July 28th, correct? I think that's the release date
Uh,
that I've
it's
seen.
it was released at the Film Forum in New York on July 4th, actually. So it's been playing and will play there until the 17th, and then it comes to LA, and then Rialto they're rolling it out across the country in art theaters and, various cities
I
through
think
September, I think.
I think I saw online that the streaming release is July 28th. I could be wrong.
Oh,
Maybe,
yeah, maybe that's right. The
yeah.
theatrical, I think, is rolling out right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And just lastly, I kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier, all these fans come to you and tell you what how important is it. Is there one specific one that stands out that really had an impact on you? Like how there's always films that change people's lives, right? In that capacity.
Yeah, I can't think of specifically, but people have said this is something that inspired me to be a filmmaker. watching Hearts of Darkness, or I didn't understand Apocalypse Now until I saw it, or I can't think of anything specifically, but pretty much to a person when they find out, oh, you made that film with Ellie Coppola. That's a great work. That's a great piece of work and a classic film. And so that's of course, it makes me very happy and proud.
And your journey from that on, do you think your journey has changed because of that film?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure. For sure. It certainly opened doors. My career's been very, I mean, I've just done a lot of different things, which I don't recommend to anybody, really. But as someone with ADHD, I just sort of go on to the next project. But yeah, it was really one of the greatest experiences I've had in my life.
Amazing. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Fax, for your time.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Love the film. Obviously, looking forward to your next project, and can't wait to see this. I'm gonna wait and I'm gonna see if it's playing in Toronto somewhere in the theater. I would love to go see it. If not, then wait on streaming.
Yeah. Oh, so you're Toronto based, right? Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure I don't have
I'll
the
find
rollout,
out.
but Rialto.
We'll find
You
it.
just go on the Rialto website and it'll say where it's playing. I